Whether it's in the air or on the ground, America gets moving and stays moving with your help. The expertise of a skilled mechanic is as critical to safe and efficient trucking as it is to jet travel. Trucks keep America moving ahead, bringing us the products that we want and need. Helping you meet that responsibility is what this program is all about. Holland Hitch wants you, the expert, to know how to get the most from a Holland 3500, 3600 fifth wheel. The only link between the tractor and the payload is the fifth wheel kingpin connection. It's important for you to understand the procedures that make its life as safe and trouble-free as possible. During the next few minutes, we'll show you how to reach this goal. The proper procedures include selecting the correct fifth wheel for the application, following simple installation techniques that provide proper support for the fifth wheel, preventive maintenance that includes regular inspections of the trailer as well as fifth wheel inspections and adjustments, and finally, following detailed steps to troubleshoot any operational difficulties. The procedures we'll be discussing are also available in written form. You can request Holland publication FW-224 from any Holland Hitch factory or distributor worldwide. The first step toward getting the most from your fifth wheel is selecting the right one for the application. Holland Hitch realizes that one fifth wheel model can't provide all the operating characteristics required by the wide variety of tractor-trailer operations. That's why we've designed so many different fifth wheels. For more information on fifth wheel selection and application, request Holland publication FW-226, entitled Holland Fifth Wheel Recommendation Guide. If you still have questions about proper selection after reviewing this publication, your Holland Hitch sales service representative is ready to help. After selecting the right fifth wheel for the application, the best way to get the most out of it is to ensure a proper installation. You can do that by following a prescribed installation technique, such as outlined in the Holland publication FW-TE-14A. This helpful guide, containing information on proper installation, operation, and maintenance procedures, comes with every fifth wheel and is also available from any Holland Hitch distributor. You should read this booklet thoroughly before attempting to install your fifth wheel. Other sources for this information include the Maintenance Council of the American Trucking Association, which has published a recommended installation procedure in its publication RP-603A. And the Society of Automotive Engineers has published SP-354, which also provides information on proper fifth wheel installation. Regardless of which recommendation you follow when your installation is complete, make sure that the fifth wheel functions properly before putting it into service. The next step to consider is a good preventive maintenance program. It's vital to getting a long, trouble-free fifth wheel life. Your preventive maintenance program should include regular trailer inspections and repairs that can greatly improve the life and performance of your fifth wheel. The trailer inspection should begin with the following procedures. First, check the flatness of the trailer skid or bolster plate. Using a 48-inch straight edge, check the plate in all directions. Any bumps, valleys, or warping will cause uneven loading of the fifth wheel, which will result in a cracked top plate and poor lock life. Be sure to replace the bolster plate if a 1/4-inch gap exists. A Holland Kingpin gauge, available from all Holland Hitch warehouse distributors, will help you inspect the kingpin. You should first check to see if the kingpin is bent. A bent kingpin accelerates lock wear and may interfere with proper fifth wheel locking. The same condition caused by a bent kingpin may also result from one that's too short. Use the kingpin gauge, as shown, to check the kingpin for proper length. If a lube plate is used in your operation, make sure to check the kingpin length. The kingpin must be sized to compensate for thickness of the lube plate. Otherwise, the kingpin will be too short. When checking your kingpin, you may find that it's too long. A long kingpin causes excessive wear in the locks and coupling difficulties. Your kingpin gauge is a no-go gauge and can be used to measure wear on both the 2-inch or 50 millimeter and 2 7/8 inch or 70 millimeter diameters. Wear of 1/8 inch or 3 millimeters is indicated if the appropriate diameter enters the slot. If it enters the slot, the kingpin must be replaced. It's also important to check the kingpin mounting. In addition to being a safety hazard, a loose mounting produces excessive chucking and rapid lock wear. Now let's summarize some of the major points we've touched on so far. We've looked at the importance of proper fifth wheel selection, fifth wheel installation, and your preventive maintenance program for trailer inspections. Another aspect of preventive maintenance deals with regular inspections, corrections, and adjustments of the fifth wheel. These steps should be performed every 3 months, 30,000 miles, or 50,000 kilometers. The inspection procedure begins with a thorough steam cleaning to remove accumulated dirt and grime. This cleaning process also removes material which may interfere with the proper operation of the fifth wheel. After steam cleaning, the top plate and brackets should be checked for cracks. If they exist, the part should be replaced, and a thorough inspection of the trailer, fifth wheel, and fifth wheel mount should be made to find the cause of the problem. Next, inspect the top plate and fifth wheel mount for damaged, broken, or missing parts. Replace only with genuine Holland parts. After making a thorough inspection, test the operation of the locking mechanism using a Holland lock tester. Lock and unlock several times. When it's operating properly, the fifth wheel will lock securely and the adjusting nut will seat against the front of the top plate. If the locking mechanism isn't functioning properly, you should look for an obvious obstruction. If this condition can't be corrected after your inspection, do not use the fifth wheel. Refer to the troubleshooting procedures outlined later in this program. If the fifth wheel is functioning properly, you're now ready to check the adjustment. Begin by closing the locks and inserting a precision 2-inch plug. When adjusted properly, the plug should fit tightly. But you should be able to turn it in the locks with some force. If the plug turns freely in the locks, tighten the locks by loosening the lock adjustment nut located on the front of the top plate. To loosen the nut, turn it counterclockwise. This allows the yoke to come down, tightening the jaws. After completing these steps, the plug should fit snugly in the lock. Next, pull the release handle. Remove the plug. Pry open the locks. Then, verify the proper operation by locking and unlocking the fifth wheel several times, using the tester. If the locking mechanism doesn't function properly, recheck the adjustment. If the wheel still doesn't work correctly, do not use it. Refer to the troubleshooting procedures outlined later in this program. After verifying the proper adjustment, lubricate all moving parts with oil or a light grease. As we've outlined, the preventive maintenance program for the fifth wheel begins with steam cleaning and inspecting, followed by a check of the locking mechanism and its adjustment. In our next sequence, we'll discuss some troubleshooting steps to follow in the unlikely event that operational difficulties develop due to wear in use. Our checklist starts with problems that can cause coupling difficulties. First, check to see if the locks are open. For some reason, the locks may be closed and locked. To remedy this situation, pull the release handle, pry open the locks, and proceed with coupling. If the locks are open, the kingpin may not be entering the locks at the proper height. This condition can be resolved by lowering the trailer until the front of the bolster plate contacts the fifth wheel 4 inches behind the pivot pin. If the wheel has been coupling properly, but while attempting to couple to a different trailer it won't lock, examine the kingpin and bolster plate. As we mentioned earlier, you should use a straight edge and a Holland kingpin gauge to check for bolster plate flatness and proper kingpin length. Problems frequently arise because of a lack of relubrication after routine steam cleaning. After each cleaning, all moving parts should be thoroughly lubricated with oil or a light grease. This is important. Occasionally, the trailer kingpin travels around the outside profile of the top plate during coupling. This can result in a bent release handle, which will prevent coupling. It must be corrected by replacing the release handle. Next, check for free movement of the cam roller, and release handle. Also, make sure that the washer in the cam profile closest to the bolt head spins freely. If the washer doesn't spin freely, remove the bolt and insert a small washer in the bolt hole. Then, install a new bolt using Loctite on the threads and tighten securely. At times, the washer retaining the compression spring may slide over the crimp in the release handle due to wear in use. This can be corrected by replacing the washer and release handle. When the kingpin travels over the top plate and falls off the front, it can result in a bent yoke shank. This prevents coupling since the yoke can't come down to capture the locks. You can fix this by replacing the yoke shank and readjusting the fifth wheel. As you heard earlier, a warped trailer skid or bolster plate causes center loading of the fifth wheel top plate, causing the locks to bind. If this problem exists, it'll be necessary to replace the bolster plate and the top plate. Included in our coupling troubleshooting checklist is the location of the adjustment nut. If it's turned down too far, the yoke may not be capturing the locks. To correct this, close the locks around a precision 2-inch plug and follow the adjustment procedure we've outlined earlier. The next item to look for is frozen locks. To check this potential problem, hold the release handle completely pulled out and try to wiggle the locks. The locks are frozen if they don't move at all. If this condition exists, remove the top plate, place it upside down, and support the pin area on hardwood blocks. Remove the cotter pins. Soak the lock pins with penetrating oil and let stand. You should then rest a steel block over the center of the lock pin. Next, drive the lock pin flush with the top plate by hitting the steel block with a sledgehammer. Drive the pin the rest of the way out using a punch. Clean the lock pin holes thoroughly and lubricate well, using only never-seized lubricant. Place the locks back into the top plate and install new pins. A bent yoke can also cause improper coupling. This happens when the yoke is cocked in the top plate and the lock swings shut while attempting to couple. You can correct this by replacing the yoke and yoke shank. A bent lock guard can also cause coupling difficulties when it's positioned too high, perhaps being deformed by use. When adjusted properly, the top of the lock guard should be flush with the edge of the 2-inch or 50-millimeter bore in the lockjaw. That brings us to the end of our troubleshooting checklist for coupling problems. Next, let's discuss ways to detect difficulties in uncoupling. These problems fall into two categories: the release system and the lock system. To begin, let's look at problems relating to the release system. First, the trailer kingpin may be putting pressure against the locks, making it difficult to pull the release handle. To remedy this, release the tractor brakes back into the kingpin, then reset the tractor brakes. Now, pull the release handle. Besides the kingpin putting pressure on the locks, you should consider the following items discussed during troubleshooting of coupling problems: lack of lubrication, locks adjusted too tight, and kingpin or bolster plate problems. Finally, the secondary lock may not clear the yoke as it's being retracted when pulling the release handle. To identify this condition, determine the type of secondary lock involved. If it's a manual secondary lock as shown, it may be as simple as pulling the lock handle and locking it out of position before pulling the release handle. If the top plate is equipped with an automatic secondary lock, inspect it for damaged or broken parts. If you can't find any problems, pull the release handle. As the cam pivots, it should contact the roll pin attached to the secondary lock. This will move it out of the way before the yoke comes back and contacts the end of the secondary lock. If a mechanical interference exists, the secondary lock should be replaced, or the end ground short enough to clear the yoke. Now that we've discussed uncoupling problems relating to the difficulties in pulling the release handle, let's take a moment to discuss uncoupling problems related to the lock system. Begin here by checking the bolts attached to the cam and yoke. If these are lost or damaged, the yoke may not be activated to allow the locks to open. Replace them if necessary. In addition to damaged bolts, the following troubleshooting items we discussed for coupling problems will affect the release of the locking mechanism. They include the top plate, which may be bent down in the center, restricting lock movement. Locks frozen to the lock pins. And the lock guard being bent behind the kingpin. There's one last matter to consider when troubleshooting uncoupling problems. The release handle may operate freely, but snap shut before the locks open. If this happens, replace the cam and check the release handle spring for proper tension. This concludes our troubleshooting checklist. If after following these procedures your fifth wheel doesn't function properly, do not use it. Contact your local Holland hitch representative for assistance. To help you with parts replacement for problems identified while troubleshooting, refer to the Holland program or publication FW-129 entitled Rebuild Procedures for the XA-3501 and 3601 fifth wheel top plate. It's important to remember that the attention you give to some basic details can ensure a long, trouble-free life for your Holland 3500, 3600 fifth wheel. These details include selecting the right fifth wheel for the application, following simple installation techniques, adhering to a regular preventive maintenance program, and finally, following a basic troubleshooting checklist, one that will help you identify and resolve most problems that arise. Holland Hitch believes that quality equipment deserves the quality maintenance that only you can provide. The skill and experience you bring to the job help trucking maintain its vital role in transportation. At Holland Hitch, we're proud to support you with the people and products that go the distance.